March and April are great months for international travel because most of the winter crowds in the beach areas are gone and the summer crowds are still a long way off. This is Roger from priceoftravel.com, and I've got 13 really great destinations to consider that are cheap and have great warm weather this time of year. If you've seen my videos before, you'll recognize at least a few of these, but there'll be some surprising places that you probably have never heard of towards the end. As usual, we'll start close to the US and Canada and then go south and east from there, so we'll cover places that are close to Europe and even in Asia. If you've got more than a week off, you'll definitely want to watch the last few as they are the cheapest and the most interesting, and even a long flight can be worthwhile because everything is so cheap once you get there. For most people in the US or Canada, the best and closest place for an affordable and amazing beach vacation in March or April is going to be the Cancun area. You can get a cheap flight from almost any airport and you'll have a huge selection of beach hotels to choose from. The weather will be warm every day and nice every night, so you can leave your outerwear in your suitcase for the flight home. My favorite area to stay in is Playa del Carmen, which is a former fishing village turned into a really fun tourist town about an hour south of the Cancun airport. You can get something like this on or very near the beach for not much over $100 per night in early April, and you'll have happy hour deals and drink specials everywhere you look. It's a really fun area with water parks and cenotes nearby, so you'll never be bored. If you prefer an all-inclusive beach resort, and especially if you're a bit of a boozer like me, your best option is going to be Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. The area doesn't have much personality, but it does have around 100 really nice all-inclusive beach resorts to choose from, and that helps keep prices weirdly cheap as they compete for guests. This one gets great reviews and goes for only $225 per night for 2 people, including all taxes and fees and as much bottom to mid-shelf beer, wine, and spirits as your system can handle. They've got 7 on-site restaurants, so you aren't stuck only eating at buffets for your whole stay. The resort has 500 rooms, and that's very typical of these newer beach resorts in Punta Cana, which is how they're able to offer such amazing value and still provide spotless rooms and great service. The March and April weather in the Caribbean will be perfect every day, so you'll be able to take advantage of some of the many outdoor activities available, or just hang out by the pool with a drink like almost everyone else. Those first 2 are great choices for anyone in the eastern US or Canada, or even Europe, but if you're in the western US or Canada, your best bet in these months will be Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. The weather will be amazing with perfect sunny days and pleasant tropical nights with virtually no chance of rain. The PV area is booming with new beach hotels and resorts both in the historic center and all along the coast north and south of the airport. All of this expansion has helped keep prices surprisingly cheap, and you get a lot for your money this time of year. Here's a well-reviewed beach hotel in the trendy romantic zone area in town with rooms for 2 at only $112 per night in early April. One great thing about Puerto Vallarta is that it's got a really fun and interesting historic district at its heart, so you can stay at one of the hotels in that area and you'll be walking distance from dozens of fun restaurants and shops, or you can stay at one of the larger resorts north or south of town and come in for a day or night a few times during your stay. March and April are the 2 best months of the entire year to visit Mexico City, which actually has surprisingly mild weather all year round due to its elevation. Speaking of surprises, if you've yet to visit Mexico City, you probably don't have high expectations, but it's actually a gorgeous city with plenty of upscale and historic neighborhoods in its center. You'll get warm and dry days with mild evenings combined with very affordable prices and excellent food. Here's a well-reviewed central hotel for just $52 per night, for example. Mexico City is enormous, but the central districts are filled with great shopping, dining, and by some measures the city has more museums than any other city on Earth. There are easy-to-visit pyramids just outside of the city and loads of other unique things to do. Mexico City is not heaven on earth, but it's way nicer than most people expect, and it's very affordable as well. All of Central America is in the tropics, so it's got good weather in these months and you could go almost anywhere, but one interesting place to consider is Panama City, which is by far the nicest and most modern large city in the area. It looks a lot like Miami in places, but prices are less than 1/3 as much for most things. Here's a nice hotel in the downtown area for $58 per night as an example. Panama City isn't as interesting as Mexico City, but it feels like more of a resort destination with plenty of great shopping and dining options. There are also beach options on both the Pacific and Caribbean coasts within 2 hours, so you could spend part of your visit exploring the city and then head out to a beach resort for the rest of your stay. Another nearby option that also has perfect warm weather in March and April is Cartagena, Colombia. One advantage it has is that it's got a gorgeous walled historic center filled with interesting cool shops and nice restaurants, and then a pleasant beach area lined with hotels just a few miles away, so it's easy to stay on the beach or in the historic district and go back and forth all you like. Here's a hotel with a pool in the Boca Grande Beach District for $67 per night in early April. I wouldn't say they have the best beaches I've ever visited, but it's a pleasant and fascinating area that lets you feel like you've been to a cultural destination and a beach town at the same time. The food and drinks here are great as long as you enjoy Latin American cuisine, and the prices are very affordable if you're like me and can't get used to having to pay $20 for a mediocre hamburger and fries in any restaurant in the US these days. Speaking of beaches and cities combined into one, Rio de Janeiro is a place that you've got to see at least once in your life. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, and the weather in these months is pretty much perfect, even if you get a couple of quick rainstorms each week. As gorgeous as it is, Rio is not the safest city in the world, so you'll want to do a bit of research and take some precautions, but as long as you do, you'll be amazed at the famous beach culture and goings-on. Both the famous Copacabana and Ipanema beaches live up to the hype, as you can check out the famous athletes and sunbathers during the day and the restaurant scene and nightlife after dark. Here's a hotel 1 block from Copacabana Beach for $79 per night in early April. And by the way, all of the hotel prices mentioned in this video are per night for 2 people, including all taxes. Brazil had been getting kind of expensive a few years back, but its currency has come back down and now it's really good value again for visitors. If you are in or near Europe, you probably already know this, but the Canary Islands are the best place in the area for great weather in these months and cheap prices. Tenerife is the largest of the Canary Islands and the most popular one with English-speaking visitors, but there are several others nearby that are similar and might even be more interesting. The Canary Islands are just off the Atlantic coast of northern Africa, so they have warm and dry days and pleasant and mild evenings this time of year. They're part of Spain, so they're very popular among Brits and other Northern Europeans living in places where the sun barely comes out in winter, and it's very easy to get by in English only. You won't find much of a party scene here like you would in Ibiza or Mallorca, but at least there are lots of sandy beaches and photogenic hotel pools. Here's a well-reviewed hotel with a gorgeous pool right in the middle of the fun southwest part of the island for $139 per night in early April. Food and drinks here are cheap as well, so the Canaries are a popular place to relax in the sun this time of the year. Not far away, and a place that can easily be combined with the Canaries on the same trip, Marrakech is the main tourist city in Morocco, and the weather here is also sunny and warm during these months. If you've thought about visiting Africa, then Morocco is an easy starting point and Marrakech is the place to begin. Knowing some French will help, but it's easy to get by only in English as the local hotels, restaurants, and especially salespeople are happy to accommodate you. The focal point is the main square next to the souk marketplace, and it's got vendors and snake charmers during the day, and it turns into a huge food court every night. Be careful when shopping though, as these are some of the best salespeople in the world, and most people can barely believe what they end up buying when they get home. Here's a traditional hotel with exceptional reviews just a couple blocks from the main square for only $81 per night, and the local food is fantastic and surprisingly affordable as well. If you're looking for something at least a bit exotic and yet very safe, Marrakech is the perfect choice. I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. Cairo is a weird place and many people will find it annoying, and I'll tell you why in a second, but Cairo is also obviously one of the world's most historic and interesting cities, and the weather this time of year is perfect day and night, which isn't true most of the year, so this is the perfect time to visit. There are 2 main things you come here to see, and they are of course the Great Pyramids of Giza on the edge of the city and the Egyptian Museum in the heart of Cairo itself. Both are amazing and worthwhile, and the people of Egypt are kind and lovely people, but tourists here will be followed around and constantly offered tours and various shopping bargains to the point that you can barely wait to get back to your hotel to finally relax again at the end of the day. You can also take a little cruise on the Nile, and these things are all unforgettable, but so are the aggressive salespeople and touts you'll need to run a gauntlet through as you move around. Fortunately, it's also cheap, and I think most people will love their visit, especially if you know what to expect. Here's an extremely well-reviewed hotel near the pyramids for only $59 per night in April. One advantage to going when the weather is perfect is there are more fellow tourists, so you'll be left alone more than if you go in low season. Speaking of not sugarcoating things, Bali used to literally be my favorite place on earth, but it's not anymore, although it's still very worthwhile if you do a bit of research before you book. Bali can feel magical, and so many other people realize that to the point that much of it feels like it's bursting at the seams with crowds and traffic. Weather-wise, Bali is almost exactly on the equator, so it's hot every day and warm every night of the year, but this is part of the dry season, so it's less humid and you probably won't get much rain in these months. Here's the thing, there are 3 main beach areas to base yourself, and the traffic is so bad that you'll probably want to choose one and stick with it for most of your trip. If you want to party with Australian surfers and those who love them, you'll want to stay in the super crowded area of Kuta Beach, Legion, and Seminyak. I've mostly stayed in this area and I enjoy it, but it's less magical than it used to be. If you've got more money, you should stay in the purpose-built resort area called Nusa Dua and the southern tip of the island. All of the hotels here are large and there are lawns and sidewalks between them, so it really does feel like a beautiful resort. If you want to experience Bali more like it used to be before the crowds, I'd recommend heading up to Lovina on the northern coast. This is much less crowded and frenzied. It's also cheaper. Here's a very nice hotel with a gorgeous pool for only $25 per night in April, and this is the area I'll stay in the next time I go. These last 2 are places that most people have never heard of, but that is one reason they aren't overrun with tourists and are worth visiting. You've probably heard of Kathmandu in Nepal, but the main tourist hub is a town called Pokhara, which sits on a lake at the base of the Annapurna mountain range. The tourist district along the lake feels like a small town and it's amazingly cheap, so this is a place that many long-term travelers like to spend weeks or even months in. The weather in these months is warm, dry, and perfect, which is only true part of the year here. The main attraction is the trekking in the nearby mountains, and if you hire guides and equipment, then that can get kind of expensive, but it's also a chilled out town on a pleasant lake, so you can just hang around and enjoy the weather if you prefer. Here's a nice hotel with a pool for only $21 per night in April, and it's in the main tourist zone right next to the lake. You can get great meals here for only a few dollars and big bottles of beer for even less than that. Pokhara is a bit out of the way, but if you've got some time, this is really a nice place to hang out. Last but not least, Luang Prabang is the main tourist town of Laos, and it's far nicer than the relatively boring capital city of Vientiane. If you've been to Thailand or Vietnam, you're used to every tourist area being strangely crowded and kind of frantic. Somehow Laos isn't like that, and it's much easier to relax and enjoy the beauty at your own pace. Luang Prabang is located along the Mekong River, and you can take a boat tour of caves and waterfalls in the area, but the city itself has a lot to do with temples and monuments and open-air markets all over. It will feel very exotic to most people hearing this, and yet it's also pretty well organized and pleasant with really nice weather this time of year. It does get a bit warm during the days, so booking a place with a pool can be nice, and fortunately they are pretty cheap. Here's a good one in the heart of the tourist district near the river for only $43 per night in April. For not much more, you can book a place with its own spa and get treatments for a fraction of what you'd pay back home. Thanks for watching, and this information comes from articles on priceoftravel.com, where you'll find more choices, hotel recommendations, and much more information. Please like and subscribe for more videos about how much things cost around the world.